Good morning and good day. It is currently 9 a.m. 11/20/2020, and this is the Not on Records podcast episode 2. And what we're going to be talking about today are going to be environmental issues. And in those environmental issues, the three topics that we're going to cover are going to be deforestation, issues by region, and pollutants. So, we're going to talk about first, deforestation. Truly critical problem today in the United States. Primarily, there's also been the wildfires in Australia, as we all know. That happened towards the beginning of the year. Everyone was freaking out about it. It was primarily the first event in 2020 that signified that how bad this year was going to go. But anyways, deforestation. So the basic definition of deforestation, as you guys can see in front of you, is the permanent removal of trees to make room for something besides forests. So, if we just break that down, it's just basically just breaking down trees, getting it out of the way to make room for something other than besides forest. And what a lot of people do sometimes is farming. So, I don't know what it's called exactly, but I know sometimes farmers try to mass burn trees, and in that, they get more land. But there's certain problems that can affect other things. So, I know it could, if they burn too much, it could eventually spread to other areas, and it's not going to be fun for them. I don't know. Alright, two of the main areas in the United States that we're going to be talking about are California and Colorado. Both states have been setting new records for deforestation. And in California, there have been 4.13 million acres of land that have been burned, just based off of the wildfires that are going there. If we go back to a couple of months ago, we know that I think there was a baby shower, a gender reveal party, and they accidentally lit a tree on fire. They didn't pick up after themselves, and one tree started burning, then two, then three, then four, and then it just went on, and it was contained, thankfully, but it was still highly detrimental. And then in Colorado, 206,000 acres of land that were burned in Colorado. It was really detrimental to Colorado as well. You can make the argument that the California wildfires spread to Colorado, but otherwise than that, there's nothing really, thankfully, too much to talk about deforestation in the United States. The Cameron Peak Fire is now at the largest Colorado's recorded history, surpassing the record just set in September 2020 by the Pine Gulch Fire, which was 139,007 acres burned. More than 92,000 structures have been damaged or destroyed, and 31 people have died. 5 of the 6 largest fires in California have occurred in 2020. Those both set by NASA, and it's really sad to see that a lot of global warming could be taking a part of it, but people are, another cause of that is that people are starting to be less cautious about what they actually do, and it's just not really good for the environment, and that will come back to us in the future, and we're going to be asking ourselves, why did we let people burn the forests? And it's just not going to make sense. Another problem with deforestation for all the sports fans out there is that it could possibly cancel games. In week 1 of the 2020 NFL season, they were doubting whether the Cowboys at Rams games and the Cardinals at 49ers games were actually going to take place because the air quality was horrendous. It wasn't stable to play in, but fortunately they did let them play. Alright, so now let's move to issues by region. So the U.S. as of 11/9/2020, the U.S. President-elect Joe Biden claims he has a plan for climate change and environmental justice. Coming from his website, as president, Biden will lead the world to address the climate change emergency and lead through the power of example by ensuring the U.S. achieves a 100% clean energy economy and a net zero emissions no later than 2050. So they're setting really high goals here. 2050, of course, it may seem far away, but it's closer than we think. And we have to start setting these goals in order to make sure that our planet is safe. Bliner has vowed to eliminate the carbon emissions planned from the electric sector by 2035 and spend $2 trillion on investments ranging from weatherizing homes to developing a nationwide network of charging stations for electric vehicles. And then that's just saying that it's going more into depth of his plan. It's just that, and that's not from his website. That's from another website. And it's going to be in the works cited page, so don't worry about that. The Paris Accord. So the Paris Accord, it's basically uniting a lot of the United Nations, and it's just making sure that everyone's taking a part of it. So the Paris Agreement opened for signature on 22nd of April 2016, Earth Day, at UN headquarters in New York. It entered into force on November 4th, 2016, 30 days after the so-called double threshold ratification by 55 countries that account for at least 55% of global emissions have been met. And then the Paris Agreement's central aim is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by keeping the global temperature rise at this century below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So what they're talking about here is that their goals is to prevent from the temperatures rising 2 degrees Celsius by the next century. So we want to keep the 2 degrees Celsius back down. And that kind of comes back to deforestation. Deforestation, a huge part of what causes so much carbon going into the ozone and rising in temperature. Because if we don't have that ozone, we're not going to be protected. Be a good time for us. Now, pollutants. The presence in or introduction into the environment of a substance or thing that has harmful or poisonous effects. So there's mainly 3 types of pollutions or pollutants. We have air pollution, marine pollution, and land pollution. So the basic definition of them is most polluted, let's go back to the most polluted areas in the world right now. So the most polluted areas include India, China, and Pakistan. Those 3 countries have levels of, I don't know what you'd call it, but the air is really bad there. So I think the air quality, that's what they're stating in this. But it's, I think, always over 100. But, I mean, hopefully they're going to find a solution soon enough. Carbon emissions are regularly what contribute to pollution. Cars, chemical remains, dust, pollen are all examples of the carbon emissions, and a huge problem that we have is that the ozone layer is degrading. More carbon is equal to less ozone. And basically that carbon layer is degrading the ozone, and it's causing a huge problem that we have right now that we're trying to find the solution to. But marine pollution. Marine pollution is a combination of chemicals and trash, most of which comes from land sources and is washed or blown into the ocean. This pollution results in the damage to the environment, to the health of all organisms, and to that of economic structures worldwide. Scientists predict by that 2050 there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. Growing pollution in the ocean affects more than just the organisms in the ocean. It can eventually affect other things in life, like humans. So it could eventually come back to us. So let's say if there's these microplastics in the ocean, and let's say fish eat those microplastics. Let's say a fisherman fishes that fish, and then he eats it, but then we have a huge problem. The fish still has the plastic in his body, which could, I don't know, it could still be there, right? And if that fisherman eats it, well, then we have a huge problem. He has plastic in his body. He could potentially die. He could have health problems. It could turn really bad for that fisherman. Land pollution. Land pollution. The deposition of solid or liquid waste materials on land or underground in a manner that can contaminate the soil and groundwater, threaten public health, and cause unsightly conditions and nuisances. Land pollution is arguably one of the more critical situations. It has the largest effect on regular agriculture because of its ability to degrade soil and the earth's surface. It could also leak into water that us humans drink and also contributes to climate change. So, if we look at land pollution, if we have all that trash just sitting up there, it could degrade make gases, greenhouse gases that are not good for us, that can eventually go back to the ozone, as I've previously said. But if we have that trash and there's water pipes right below that, or right above that trash, then that trash could seep down and maybe leak into the water if the tubes or the sewage system isn't put in right. If it isn't built right, it could leak into the water, coming back to us. And the main point that I want to bring, mainly about deforestation, issues by region, and pollutants, is that it could all come back to us. It could all come back to us in the sense that it might not affect us right now, but in the future, it's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to watch out for, and we're going to be regretting why we haven't addressed these problems. So, thank you guys for watching the Not On Records podcast episode number 2. Hope you all have a great day, and that is it.